There we go. We are now recording. My name is Mana, and I want to welcome you into this space. We want to honor all that it takes to carve out this much time on a Saturday to learn and to be present with others. We also want to honor those of you who are here, but also people who are helping you to be here. So, why don't we do this as people are coming in? Just take a minute and tell me what brings you here. Okay, you can put that in the chat. What brings you into this practice? So here's our guiding question. Why are you drawn to this work? And what brings you here? And I'll tell you what brought me into this work. Hmm. Emmett, where are you from? What location? What city? What place? Oh, that's beautiful. You are from Riyadh. I was in Riyadh last year. I was there for a few days. Beautiful country. So, for those of you, because we have a lot of new names, my name is Mana, and I have been a medium since I was about 4 years old. With my very first vivid experience conversing with the spirit at about 6. And that kind of marked a long, twisted journey into death education. So I am a death educator. I'm a death doula for 17 years, having started with on-the-job training when my own mother died of a very, very long battle with cancer. And I kind of became an unofficial, untrained doula for my mom in the last couple of months of her life. My educational background is therapy, but my spiritual, my intuitive background is a channel. I'm a psychic medium. And of course, I'm a death doula. I love teaching and guiding. I love teaching and guiding conscious studies. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about our end of life doula training and why I think everyone should get educated in death, by the way. That's just what I feel, okay? Because growing up, I did not receive any kind of orientation to death and dying or to even grief and loss. And I believe that most people never really receive any kind of training in it, right? We avoid the topic of death. We don't know anything about grief and loss until it hits. So it's really important that we all educate ourselves in supporting those that we love and ourselves in moments of loss and grief and death. Okay, it's my goal with death education to really reach out and share and educate people about death and dying and about grief and loss. So whether it's with me or somewhere else, I absolutely think that everyone who's in on this call today should definitely look into training yourself, okay, educating yourself about death, dying, grief, and loss. So first and foremost, we are born and we will all die, right? So death kind of plays a very interesting role in our lives. I think we are really lucky that we live in a time that there is enough research and there are many resources available about grief and about loss and about death and dying. But at CLI, at Conscious Leadership Institute, I feel like there are many doorways into this conversation about end of life. Right? Every single month, hundreds of people study with us, and each of them has different influences and impacts that lead them to seek out more information, leading them to want to have a deeper conversation around things that matter, right? About grief and about loss and death and dying. So, as I call it, we kind of learn about death through many lenses. Okay, we are looking at death through many lenses at CLI, whether it's psychic training, whether you are becoming a medium with us, whether it's ancestral healing, whether it's death doula, or the grief training that's coming up next year. These are just different lenses, different ways to look at the same conversation. So we can learn about death through our families, through our cultures, through the stories passed down to us. I mean, right here in this group, we have so many different countries, so many different places, and each one of us has witnessed, has felt, each one of us has carried stories about death in our own lived experience, right? It's different. So death kind of invites us into this deep conversation. Okay, it invites us into, I feel like what is at its core is profoundly human experience. And I really believe if we don't study death, then we're not really studying how to live. So when we begin to consider death, we naturally begin to consider our own mortality. Like Ahmed mentioned, he said something profound. He said, I want to learn to master death meditation in order to embrace impermanence. What a powerful thought, very powerful. And what happens is when we begin to study death, especially in this class, you will have to consider your own mortality, right? And to even think about becoming a doula means we will at some point come face to face with death ourselves. So sitting beside someone who's approaching death, so as a death doula, I've found myself in these hospital rooms or sitting next to people who are dying. And I promise you, it stirs something within you. It will ask you to meet your own definition of what we believe to be a good death. Okay, so that's a question, right? What do you think is a good death? And to examine the beliefs and the preferences and the biases that shape that idea. Like I've thought about that so many times. What are my beliefs? What are my preferences? How do I view death? How would I like to die? Or how would my loved ones die? How should they die? So, all these beautiful stories that we have in our mind, we have to leave them out at the door when you're supporting someone else. Okay, so to truly support someone else who is dying, we must learn to set all those biases, all those beliefs, everything that you've ever learned about death aside. You got to step it aside, keep it aside, and then to enter each moment, not as what we think we are, but just as presence. You just have to bring presence as a doula. Okay, so at CLI, we believe that a doula kind of centers the dying person. Your focus is a dying person and their circle of love. Okay, people who they love and people who love them, offering presence and resources and support everyone in that one principle that I really believe. Yeah, in 17 years, one thing has come up over and over again. It is the autonomy of the end of life process. Okay, the autonomy, and we'll talk about that in a second. But our role as a doula is to help people die in alignment, is to die in alignment with their own wishes, their own beliefs, their own values, and to honor the way they have envisioned their final passage. I promise you, it is the toughest thing you'll ever do. especially if you're supporting someone in the family. Okay, if you have a loved one that is dying, we tend to insert ourselves. We try to interfere in their dying process, which is a no-no for a death doula. So my bold vision um, for CLI, just as an organization, is to empower people like you, individuals, to become conscious guides of death. Okay, so you can actually bring this to your loved ones, to your communities, and to yourself. So moving through our end of life doula training doesn't mean that you have to become a professional doula. That's not what this training is about. You absolutely could become a death doula with this. However, you might take a very different path, right? And you might take this training to deepen your own self-awareness, to deepen your awareness of how to accompany a loved one that is dying, or to simply reimagine your relationship with death and what it truly means. And every time someone in the family dies, that will be challenged. That belief you have about death is going to be challenged every single time someone you absolutely love is about to die. So I invite you to become part of this growing movement of people who are willing to talk about death. I don't think it's any more people like there's a lot of people avoiding death even today. Okay. But I see so many more people come into this training now every year. And we only do this once a year because it's such a special thing for me. I do mediumship a lot more. Some of you are training to become mediums with us. So you see there's a lot more mediumship level 1, level 2 constantly going on throughout the year. But death doula training is offered only once because it's special. It takes time to bring compassion into this conversation about dying. So what I want to do real quick, let's look at the very basic question that people have, which is, what is a death doula, really? Right? What is a death educator? A death educator is a companion. You are going to be a guide. You are going to support and provide non-medical, emotional, spiritual, and practical support to people who are facing death. And also their circle of love, okay? People who are affected by that death. So this training is designed for you in a way. I have two intentions with it. The first one is to provide you with a very strong background and context for doula support. So in times of death and grief and loss, what exactly are you supposed to do? Right? How many of you have received training? I never received any training and what I was supposed to do when my mom was dying of cancer, right? My younger brother recently passed away, and even after 17 years of this kind of work, there was distance. There was long. He doesn't live in this country, and I couldn't be there for him as a doula. I would have loved to be there. It was a sudden death. He was gone like that. So now I'm working with supporting his family. He has a very young family of 2 kids and a wife, and they're dealing with lots of grief that comes in with sudden death and sudden young death, right? So what am I supposed to do when my niece calls me up at 2 a.m.? What am I supposed to do? So this will provide you with that. Okay, this will provide you with the training to how do we companion others to death and grief and loss. And then the second intention is to invite you to become a little bit more, to kind of explore your own mortality. Okay, to explore your own death and dying. How are you prepared? How many in this class have a medical will, right? How many of you in this class right here have a will? What if you go out to get groceries and you die? What is your family supposed to do? Like, we are going to explore all of that. And it's very uncomfortable, right? It's super uncomfortable. The last group we did last year, we had invited some clients, and the students had to work on death planning with the clients. I will tell you, every client we had in class cried. Every client. The goal is not to make people cry, but when people start thinking about their own mortality, people who have children and who are young and thriving and they don't think about death and dying, it can be very jarring. It can be jarring, but this is important because we all want to be prepared when death strikes, right? So those are the two intentions. Now, I want to take you through how we do it in the class. Okay, so this training, the Death Doula training, is a collection of mediumistic medicine. So you're going to study some little bit of mediumship in it, not the whole thing, just a few aspects of mediumship. We are going to touch upon mental health, right? So grief. We are going to touch upon social work. We are going to touch upon spiritual care. The end of life doula training is a doorway. It's the foundation for those of you who feel called to serve others. Now, this doesn't have to be people outside your family. This could just be that you want to be so prepared that you can support anyone in your family and your loved ones when death happens. Okay, is there anyone in this class who thinks they're not gonna die? You can put that in the chat, and then we would like to know your secret to it. But if anyone thinks that, "Yeah, I'm not gonna die," then you don't need this. But if that's not the case, then this training is for everyone, right? And so in the 12-week training, we go through these, I call this the CLI doula approach. The first one is the conscious vessel. And the foundation of sacred presence is how I see it. Okay. Before we can hold space for other people, we must learn to hold space for ourselves. So, a lot of this principle, self consciousness, as I call it, means cultivating that awareness of inner landscape. What are your beliefs? What are your biases? What are your wounds? What are your patterns? What is your understanding and belief around death and dying? What do you think happens when people die? Just a basic question, right? What do you think happens when people die? So that when we are serving others, it doesn't come from a place of projection, it comes from a place of clarity. So, this principle, through reflection and mindfulness and embodied self care, we are going to learn how to discern between what is ours, what are our beliefs, what is the story I'm telling myself, and what belongs to the person who's actually dying, because there's a difference. And you know what? That difference kind of gets muddied when it's someone we love. Okay, if you're doing this for as a job, I've done hundreds and hundreds of these things. When you're doing it for someone who's outside of your family, it's much easier to be detached from it. But if you are going to be a support system for someone who's dying in your family, we very easily bring our belief systems and what we think should be their process into the mix. And then we take away the spotlight from the dying person. So it's really important that we know who we are, our belief systems, and be emotionally regulated. We need to be spiritually grounded, and we need to be ethically clear to then go out and help other people. So that's the first principle. The second one is the sacred passage. Okay, so sacred passage to me is, I think of dying as a rite of passage, right? Rite of passage. Let me bring you here for a quick second. Okay, so look at that beautiful tunnel on this slide. So that's how I viewed that. It's kind of like a sacred transformation that happens. It opens up an opportunity for the spirit to leave this body and move on to a new journey. So every human being has the right to walk that passage with autonomy, okay, with dignity, with choice. And our job as doulas is not to fix anything, okay? It's not to save, it's not to take away their pain, it's not to control their dying process, but to simply witness it, to honor it, and to create conditions for a person to cross in peace, in alignment with their own values, with their own beliefs, exactly how they want it to be. And what happens is for family members, if you have a sudden death in the family, we are often left with so much guilt. We question ourselves. We say, could I have done better? Could I have done something else, something more? So, to see death as a rite of passage is to recognize that something sacred is unfolding. It is completely out of your control. It should be because it's not your rite of passage, it is someone else's. And it is a completion of a human story, right? The spirit is now leaving this body and moving on to a new journey. So we always have to hold the vision of wholeness, even when fear arises. Even when fear arises, not by denying the suffering, but by walking beside it with reverence. I think it's perhaps the sacred passage to me is perhaps the toughest principle to live with. And this is just a question to everyone in the group. If you've ever had someone who died in your family, someone very close to you, it's difficult to keep yourself out of it, right? It's so difficult to stay out of their process. We just want to be in it and we want to fix things and we want to take the pain away and we want to do everything possible to not let this person go. So our innate instinct is to insert ourselves. And as doulas, that's a no. You cannot do that. Your job is to witness and honor and be present for them. Okay. Then you have the dying process. The dying process is, it kind of has three different elements to it. So we're going to go through this. But to me, it kind of, this is how the program is a little different than any of the doula training out there. Much of the doula training available today talks about the physiology of dying, like the body, what happens to your body. It talks about certain aspects of mental health, so grief. I think it's covered a little bit, but no one really talks about the metaphysics of mediumship, right? Of dying. So this principle grounds the metaphysical awareness of death into the practical realities of dying. So we're going to talk about all these things and practice, right? Lots of practice, physiological, emotional, psychological, and energetic. It's all mixed into this principle here. Okay. It helps you to learn how to accompany the person who's dying through the actual stages of transition, both visible, things that you can actually see, their body, their mind, but also the invisible, which is the energetic stuff that's happening. I cannot tell you how many times I have been with a dying person and they're about to die and you see spirits come in, like ancestral spirits, people that have passed away from their family will begin to come in. So as a medium, it's easy for me to see it. I can see that they are being received. Okay. Not so easy for the family, right? So people who are not mediums or who don't believe in it or have a mental block, they will have so much fear that their loved one is now dying and it's gone and it's the end. But it's really not the end. It really is not the end. I have so many of my mediumship students here in this class, and they will tell you that your body and your everything that you possess, everything that is tangible, will die, but the spirit will continue. So we will explore what happens to the body, to the mind, and the energy field when someone is dying. We'll do that in the class. And I would like us to learn how to recognize not only the medical signs of dying, not only the physical signs of dying, but also the subtle energetic and emotional shifts that accompany the soul's journey, right? Our role is to bring calm and coherence in the dying process. I had a, I had a, I had a client just 2 days ago, a mediumship client. And so she wanted a mediumship reading because her father passed away on Monday. Okay, I didn't know that. She just booked the reading. So as we go into the reading, she's a physician, she's a doctor, and she was so filled with guilt. She was like, I didn't read the signs. We didn't think he was sick. I just brought him to the urgent care and he never made it out. He's 92. Okay, this guy's not young. He was 92. So as I started doing the reading, the dad shows up. Her father came in, and we had such a great conversation with the father, but she was still hanging on to the guilt. She was like, could I have done something else? Could I have saved him? Did we not see the signs? Because physically he looked fine. There was nothing wrong with him. I just took him for some little thing, you know? And I said, yeah, but there were energetic signs of decline. Like the spirit is telling you. He was exhausted. He was tired. He was 92. He had decided it was time to leave. So even though there were the medical and the physical signs were not present, energetic signs were present for the spirit to leave. Okay, so we are going to study that here. So these are some of the key themes of this one principle. Okay, moving on from that to the art of presence. This is going to be your um, this is going to be a key to accompany others or yourself, because true listening is the heartbeat of doula work. You'll be sitting next to someone who's dying, and your job is to literally listen with NATO. Okay, that's what I call it. Listening with NATO, meaning not attached to an outcome, is how I see it. So it means that you have to be present without feeling the need to fix anything, without feeling the need to make sense of anything, to lead towards another conclusion, to bring up a list of people that they should apologize to, or bring up a list of people that should apologize to your family. None of that. It is listening with the whole self, with your body, with your mind, and your spirit, while letting go the impulse to change the outcome for your client, okay, or for your loved one. So this practice dissolves the need that we feel, the boundary between giving and receiving. It allows a very authentic connection. You know how we do this? There's a very simple exercise that we practice. It's called Who Are You? And we go into pair partner groups. And in the pair partner groups, you're supposed to sit there for a good 10 minutes. The first 5 minutes, you say nothing to each other. Okay, you're just staring at the other person. It gets so uncomfortable to do that, like gravel. It's like being in an elevator with someone that you don't want to be in that elevator. And the next 5 minutes, you just keep asking your pair partner, who are you? Who are you? And they keep answering, right? That kind of gives you a way to connect with them, gives you a way to listen to what they're saying without projecting what you think of them onto them. So that's the listening piece of it. And then lastly, the last principle of doula work is the eternal continuum. Apologize for that. All transitions carry both loss, and there's kind of like a continuation of something, right? So something dies, but then something continues. So in every death, every person who dies, physical, emotional, and symbolic, something will dissolve, but something will also endure. Something will go on. So what goes on? When does anyone in this group, have you ever had someone die in your family? The question is, what continued? The love, the memory, the legacy, the consciousness, the intelligence of who they were, the wisdom of who they were, those things will continue. This principle reminds us that the work of a death educator is not about erasing fear. That's not our job, okay? But to transform it, transform that fear that people have into understanding. That's the best gift you can give to. I was very fortunate to be able to do that with my mother. We were kind of teaching each other as she was dying and I was helping. We were able to study that. With my brother, I did not receive it because his death was sudden, gone. But I'm able to do that. I'm able to erase the fear that his family has by giving them the understanding. His wife is now studying mediumship with me today. Last week was her first week. And I'm so happy because she's not a spiritual person at all, but the the need to understand what happened to her husband is so strong that she's studying it. She's understanding it. She's erasing the fear and the sadness that comes with his loss. And she's trying to understand how she can continue that relationship with this person she's lost. So it gives you the spiritual and philosophical depth to the doula work, which is not present out there. Okay. So you're not going to get this. In other classes because we study a lot of quantum physics. We are going to study the physiology of dying, psychology of grief, the metaphysics of mediumship. Doulas will help normalize the conversation. That is what I've been able to do for my family after that death of my brother. I organize a mediumship session for my family. I wasn't a part of it. I had some of my amazing students who are just pro mediums. They're excellent. So we all came together as a group, seven of them, and they gave a reading to my brother's wife, to my dad, and to his kids. I'm telling you, I mean, it was such a switch from the day they received the reading, the understanding of what may have happened to my brother was has grown every day. So, as doulas, it's our job to bring that to your clients. It's our job to bring that to the families, to help them understand so they're not afraid, they're not fearful, because fear will lead to isolation, and isolation leads to not healing. Okay, you cannot heal in isolation. You can heal in solitude, but not in isolation. So this is also a piece that is severely missing from most training programs out there because they tend to focus a lot on the physiology of death. What exactly happens when your body is dying, right? But to some extent, they also touch upon mental aspects of it, grief, I've seen that, but none include the spiritual mediumistic approach that we will take in the death education. Okay, we want to learn to understand death not as a disappearance, right? That's not what we're here for, but as a movement through different planes of existence. Yeah, you existed in a body, but now you are a continuum of energy. Your memory, your consciousness continues. And how do I train my clients? How do I train myself to continue having a relationship with people I have lost and loved? Okay? So that's what the five principles are. I want you to go through the curriculum. So the next few slides, you'll actually see a breakdown of some of the topics. So I am going to be quiet for 2 minutes. I'll just ask you guys to review it. Okay. So let's do the first one here, the 12-week doula program. And I will send this out so you can review it at your own pace. But let's just go through the different topics here. There's a lot of practical work in these classes. So if you're thinking that I cannot do this live, meaning you cannot be there all the time, I will tell you it's not the same experience to watch replay it later. Okay, you want to be there um, to actively participate in it. So we have 12 classes, okay, 12 weeks. It's going to be 12 Sundays for 2 hours. And it's going to be 2 to 4 p.m. Definitely your attendance is required because I wouldn't personally feel comfortable if someone is just replaying it because there's so much practical work in it. You're going to put in role play with sometimes you're going to be a dying person. I'm going to say, okay, you have 3 months to live. Now, work with your pair partner on this. So you need to have that kind of practice and presence when you're doing it. So I would say at least 75 to 80% of your time you want to be in class. Okay, there's not something you can just watch and read. Because if that's your goal, then there's so much out there you can read, right? This is where we want to really prepare ourselves. Legacy planning, medical wills, estates. We're going to do all that in class so that you're really prepared at the end of the 12 weeks to not just take care of your family, but also if you want to help others outside in the community, you should know what you can do. We have with the payment plans, we have price payment plans available. So you can make payments in weekly or bi-weekly installments as well. Okay, so if you do decide to sign up for this class, what I would recommend is reaching out to me. So that's my email here. And you are just simply going to email me and ask me to send you the payment plans, whatever you're interested in. The classes begin on February 1st. Okay, it's the first Sunday in February. And I don't believe we have any breaks. We go all straight 12 weeks after that. But let me come to any questions in your chat. Let me see. Any questions about the training? You can put your questions in the chat. Yes, I must have read your mind. And you also have the website up there. You can go on the website and yes, Michelle, I am going to be teaching. I'm the instructor. So with mediumship and death doula, I know and channeling, those are three things that I do not have other people teach. I guide mediumship, I guide death doula, channeling, and also the grief certification that's coming up. It's 12 weeks of grief training, grief and loss. That's in April. I'm going to be teaching that. But then we have other things that we have lots of good instructors like psychic and tarot and other things. Okay. So if you don't have any other questions, here's what I'm going to leave you with. I want you to, whether you study with us or not, okay, it's really important that you maintain your curiosity about this topic, be open and be willing to become a voice for conscious and compassionate death care, which is so absent in our society, right? One or the two, something's missing in the way people do death care. So I want you to um, create a training program for yourself. Okay, so even if you don't study with us, make sure that you kind of get an overview of what death care should look like in the last 45 minutes. So create your own training, bring that to your home, to your families at the dinner table. You need to ask those questions. Do we have a medical will, right? What if you are on life support? And if someone has to pull the plug, you know what that's going to do to the person? They're going to be living with guilt, so much guilt. So, what does that for you look like? What does the medical will look like in your country, in your place, wherever you live? So, make sure that you start thinking about these things, whether or not you go through the training. Okay, that's just my advice to you. Uh, let's wrap up. Let's go have a beautiful Saturday. I am going to send out this replay with the slides in the email. Okay, so you should receive an email from me. But thank you so much. Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.